Good afternoon or good morning, whatever time zone you may be in. And welcome to Webinar Wednesday, Lunch and Learn with IHA. Today, IHA has the pleasure of introducing the new webinar for brand licensing in the housewares market. Today, our presenters will be Jessica Blue, Vice President of the Licensing Expo, and Stu Seltzer. Jessica?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the International Housewares Association for inviting us back for, I think this is the third year, to discuss and talk about licensing and brand extension. And thank you to all of you for joining us today. As Ginny said, my name is Jessica Blue, and I'm the VP of Licensing Expo. I've been running licensing shows for Advanced Star Communications for 10 years, and I previously ran Brand Licensing Europe in London before relocating to the US to run Licensing Expo 3 years ago. My co-presenter today is Stu Seltzer, President of Seltzer Licensing. Stu is a specialist in licensing, partnership marketing, and strategic alliances, and he's implemented licensing programs for some of the best-known brands in the world. He also lectures on licensing at NYU. So that's us. So as I mentioned, I work for a company called UBM Advanced Star. We are a global media company, and we produce publications, trade shows, and conferences all over the world. The licensing team here are 23 people, all over the world, who live, breathe, eat, and sleep licensing. So we are really the go-to resource for everyone in the licensing industry, whether they're a retailer, a licensee, or a brand owner. We organize the 2 largest licensing shows in the world, BLE in London and Licensing Expo in Vegas, and we also publish License Global magazine. And our events are supported by the Licensing Industry Merchandisers Association, and they represent the interests of the licensing industry, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them later. Okay, so the licensing industry is big business, and it actually accounts for $241.5 billion in retail sales, and that is the latest figure from Lima's Global Licensing Industry Survey, which you can actually purchase from Lima Direct, and I can give you the details of that after this webinar. And it generates around $13.4 billion in royalty revenue, and those are the figures for 2014. So it really is a large, flourishing industry. And the house and home licensing sector generates $17.4 billion of global retail sales annually. Okay, so really consumers are unaware of licensing. They just buy the products that they like, and that is why licensing works, and it really should be like that. It shouldn't be obvious. It should be organic. So I'm going to run through a short video. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it, to just give you a very brief background on what licensing is and how it works.
Retailers and manufacturers work hard to market products consumers want to buy. But in a world with millions of products, how can anyone hope to make their products stand out? There was a time when you could just label your products and many people would trust what you told them. But today, that doesn't work so well. In fact, it can even make consumers more skeptical. So how can retailers and manufacturers cause their products to connect with today's disenchanted public? Well, it starts by realizing that there are brands consumers do trust through years of great experiences. And it's possible for retailers and manufacturers to simply borrow that trust by labeling their products with the marks of these trusted brands. This growing form of marketing is called licensing, and it's today's most effective innovation for quickly and effectively communicating the value of your products to your customers. Here's why it works. Brand owners have earned the trust and loyalty of millions of consumers all over the world. And those consumers associate their favorite brands with specific and important values. But these values extend into product categories far beyond the ones currently produced by the brand owners. This leftover value is called untapped brand equity, and it's often simply waiting for a retailer or manufacturer to put it to good use. Licensing this valuable brand equity will label their products in a way that deeply connects with the consumers and can often give an exclusive advantage to the licensee or retailer, putting them miles ahead of their competitors. Today, brand owners are only getting a return on a fraction of the value they worked so hard to create. But through licensing, brand owners can allow retailers and manufacturers to extend their brands at no cost to the brand, creating multiple streams of new revenue simply by discovering the right connections. Brand owners, retailers, and manufacturers have only just begun to experience the creative ways licensing can expand their businesses. Licensing can repeatedly create a win for the retailer, a win for the brand owner, and a win for the consumer. Brands are the best friends of product marketers, and in the same way, retailers and manufacturers can help brand owners discover the full value of their brand's equity. It's time they get together. Through networking, brand owners can get a larger return on the real value of their brand, and retailers and manufacturers can begin to employ the benefits of licensing to cause their products to start flying off the shelf. Position your business to explore and experience the boundless benefits of licensing.
So hopefully you could hear that video pretty well. So that was just to give you a little background. So to recap, put very simply, licensing is a contractual permission to use a brand character or image in association with a defined product for a defined period of time in a defined territory. And the brand is also referred to as the intellectual property or just the property. And in the licensing world, we talk about properties all the time, and what we're talking about really is brands. So licensing is the process by which a brand or property owner extends that brand out of its principal environment and onto products of a completely different nature. So this is a real-life example of how it works. Tony the Tiger, I'm sure you're all familiar with, and he's a character that's owned by Kellogg's. Both Tony the Tiger and Kellogg's are brands, but Kellogg's owns the Tony brand. Kellogg's is the licensor. And like many licensors, Kellogg's is represented by a licensing agent, and the licensing agent has worked with Kellogg's to broker the deal you can see here between Kellogg's and the licensee. And the licensee is the manufacturer that has made the cup that you see there. Essentially, the licensee is the one that's going to manufacture the product and get it distributed and get it sold into retail. In short, this deal's added value and desirability to the product, and this has meant hopefully more of that product being sold, which has been a win for the licensee and a win for Kellogg's, the licensor. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the players and a little bit more about, you know, the terms that I kind of just referenced just then, because you'll hear these terms a lot when you enter the licensing world. And this is kind of how the relationship works. The licensor is the owner of the brand or property, and the licensor, as I said, may or may not be represented by a licensing agent. The licensee is the consumer goods manufacturer. It could also be an app developer or a publisher or a video games maker, and the licensee is the company that's going to buy the permission to use the brand on the products that he or she develops and makes. And then the retailer is buying the product from the licensee. In some instances, the retailer buys permission to use the license direct from the licensor, and that's called a direct-to-retail deal. Just to, you know, to add that one in there, but that's you know, that's not used by all kind of companies. It depends really on the relationship between the retailer and the licensor, whether they want to do a direct-to-retail deal. And then finally, the consumer sees the finished product in the store and buys it, hopefully lots of it, and everyone makes a healthy profit. So here's some terminology that you may hear. The licensing agreement between a licensor and a licensee is a legally binding document, and it's there really to protect the interests of both parties. The licensing agreement is prepared by the licensor, and it's approved or amended by the licensee. A licensing agreement is not a fixed price transaction. As a licensee, you pay the licensor a royalty for use of the licensed property, and this is normally in the format of an agreed percentage on sales and paid quarterly. And a royalty can be anything from 3 to 22%, and the percentage really depends upon the type of property you're dealing with. A hot property will have a higher percentage royalty rate, as the window of opportunity is often shorter, but it also depends on the property category. Sometimes an art license will tend to have a lower royalty rate also, but really it's vital to negotiate so that it works well for both parties. As a licensee, you may be required to commit to a minimum guarantee, and that's a minimum fee that has to be paid by the licensee to the licensor, irrelevant of product or service sales, and this will happen at the end of the contract. You may be required as a licensee to pay in advance to the licensor, and that's an upfront payment that the licensee pays the licensor and is part of the guarantee, and that's normally paid on the signature of contract. I talked just now a little bit about direct to retail. I haven't put that up here, but you will hear that a lot, and as I said, it's when the retailer becomes the licensee and gets the product made and sells it exclusively in their stores, and the retailer pays the royalty back to the licensor. I also have put evergreen up here, and there is much debate about what makes a property an evergreen one, and some will say a property is an evergreen and others would disagree over certain properties. But really, as I see it, an evergreen property is one that's really stood the test of time, and it's been around long enough for there to be little to no explanation needed as to what it is. Some examples are Coca-Cola, or maybe Winnie the Pooh, Ferrari, Kellogg's. They're all examples of evergreen properties. I've also put licensing out versus licensing in, and that's something else you will hear. As a licensor, you are licensing out your brand, and as a licensee, you're licensing in the brand. So that's the distinction there. Okay, so why do consumers buy licensed products? Well, there are many reasons, but it really is about emotional connection to a brand. Like the video showed, it's about, building brand equity, and consumers buy into that brand equity. They understand it. The brand really stands for something for them, so they want to buy other products associated with it. It can be an aspirational lifestyle choice to replicate a style or brand essence you admire as a consumer. It could be fantasy play. Younger consumers, 2 to 6, typically, they like to role play their character and want props and toys that replicate that fantasy world. It could be as a souvenir to take something home from a special event, maybe a film or a concert or a theme park visit. We hear nostalgia a lot at the moment, and people like to relive special memories from their past, either individually or to share with their children or their friends. Another reason is fanship. Consumers like to show their affinity to a brand. They like to express their interest and find like-minded people and show people what they're about through the products that they buy. Or it can be to express a personality, an attitude, a humor, an edge, or a sweetness. So these are some of the benefits of licensing for the brand owner, and I've touched on some of these already, but really licensors can use licensing to increase brand awareness, to have multiple products in multiple categories will automatically increase brand awareness and distribution. It allows licensors to build their brand globally, so rather than manufacturing product in a different territory, they will actually choose to license that brand into that territory and have somebody in that territory make the product and distribute it for them. It also decreases inventory risk, so rather than manufacturing themselves, the licensor does not have to hold all that stock and take all that risk. The licensee will do that for them. And importantly here, it allows licensors to partner with an expert, so it allows them to find an expert in a certain field, whether that's somebody who makes t-shirts or who makes silverware or who makes glassware, and find the best partner they can who's already making those products and making them well and having them distributed, so they can actually tap into that expertise rather than trying to create it themselves and source the product themselves. And then benefits of licensing for the licensee or the retailer, as I kind of just referenced, it allows them to capitalize on already successfully proven content or a successfully proven brand. They know that their consumers are already going to connect with that brand in a certain category, so it's not too much of a jump to have them connect with it in a slightly different category. It enables licensees to gain shelf space at retail, to increase sales through a wider assortment of product, to increase market share, and also the opportunity for retailers, as I said, to actually do deals direct with licensors if they choose to, and gain exclusivity in product assortment through a direct-to-retail deal. Okay, so if you've decided that you want to explore licensing a bit further and you want to start talking to some of the brands and agents that could be a good fit for you, if maybe you're a brand owner and you're looking for an agent, or you're a brand owner and you're looking for licensees and retailers, or even if you're a licensee and you're looking to find brands that you could manufacture for, where do you start? Well, you need to get to know the licensing industry. You need to have an understanding of who is licensing what to whom, and start networking. And as Stu, I'm sure, would agree with, this is a business that really likes to shake hands, and face-to-face exchanges are really, really important. There's lots of opportunities to network at trade shows like Licensing Expo, including a big opening night party where 2,000 licensees, retailers, and brand owners network in a more relaxed environment. Actually, Licensing Expo is free to attend if you're a licensee or a retailer. So you should absolutely register for that, and I'll give you the details after this. I'd also recommend subscribing to License Global's free daily e-news, and you can really keep up to date with the daily deals, and they are daily. In our industry. And License Global also produces 6 magazine issues a year with in-depth reports and analysis on the industry, and they also publish something which is really useful, which is the top 150 global leading licensees list and the top 150 global licensors list. Those you can find on licensemag.com, and they're really valuable resources. Joining Lima is also a really wise thing to do, and as I said, they're our partner on the show, but they represent the interests of licensees, manufacturers, and licensors, and they also host lots of networking events too. So this is the floor plan for Licensing Expo, so you can see, it's kind of difficult to see, but we've just put some of the brands that are represented up there to give you a little snapshot. But there are about 450 booths and 5,000 brands to shop at the show. So, it's a really interesting place to compare and contrast the brands rather than looking at them in isolation. And some licensors will actually show you the style guides for their brands, which is the physical guides that dictates colors and treatments of logos and imagery. And they will actually, some of them will actually show you that at the show, so you can really get a sense of how you can use the brands. And we also have an extensive seminar series called Licensing University. And there are between 20 and 30 seminars that run alongside the show, including a 5-hour beginner's masterclass, and that's the day before the show opens. And that's really, really, really valuable. Okay. So as you can see, we have kind of brands from every segment exhibit. So this is kind of like a snapshot of the licensing world, really. So, at the show there are automotive brands like Lamborghini, BMW, Ducati, Honda, Jeep, Mini, Mustang, celebrities like Jimi Hendrix, Justin Bieber, Katy Perry, and the Beatles are represented. In food and beverage, there's 7-Up, Campbell's, Coke, Dr. Pepper, Hershey's, Jack Daniels. And in the movie world, Fox, Disney, DreamWorks, Sony Pictures, Universal, and Warner Brothers, plus all the major agents are represented. So really, it's a great place to go to explore the brands that are available to license, or if you're looking for an agent, also a great place to go to find an agent. And as I said earlier, thousands of international retailers, licensees, and manufacturers attend the show. We had around 16,000 last year. Okay, so if you can bear with us for a moment or two, I'm going to switch controls to Stu Seltzer, who is going to take over the presentation. So just bear with me one moment.
All right, thank you, Jessica. All right, So I am now going to show you my screen, and just so you know who you're dealing with, I think I'm going to click here so you can actually see what I look like. So broadcasting live on a beautiful day here. I'm based in New York City, and we have all three places covered. I know the IHA team is based in Chicago, and Jessica was calling in from LA. All right, so I assume you can see the screen, right?
We can, Stu, but can you we can see all your slides. There we go.
Great. All right, good. So welcome everybody, and can you hear me okay also?
Yep.
Great. All right, good. So it's my pleasure. Here's a quick background on who I am, what I've been doing. As Jessica mentioned, I've been in the licensing industry for over 20 years. My first job in licensing was actually working at Yves Saint Laurent, the French design company, and worked directly with Yves. And what we did there is we took Yves' designs and licensed it. Pretty much everything was licensed except for the couture. So that meant we did deals with Cartier, was our licensee for jewelry. We did deals with Schwartz & Benjamin for footwear, Luxottica for eyewear. We had about 12 licensees when I ended up leaving. And the company eventually was sold. It's now part of the Gucci group. And I personally left and became part of, got recruited to work at Warner Brothers in the DC comic division, worked on Batman brand. And to put in perspective, working on Batman, we had 450 different licensing partners, so a whole different realm, although the same methodology. And then 17 years ago, I started this company. We're a full-service licensing agency based in New York City, working on global deals, working with global clients such as Unilever and Del Monte. We work with Scott's Lawn and Garden and Miracle Grow and Milk-Bone and many others. And other things you should know, as Jessica mentioned, I've been teaching at New York University and just finished the 12th year teaching and start my 13th year in January. And along with Stephen Extract, I was one of the contributing authors on the Licensing for Dummies book. So there's a little picture of it as well. So that's my background. And the first slide I use whenever I teach at NYU, the first slide the students see is this. And it is your basic licensing 101, your basic marketing pyramid that if anybody ever takes a marketing class, they see it. But I use this to basically explain why licensing works. And the goal of all marketing, of course, is to get your potential customers and to move them up the pyramid. Become your loyalists, become your apostles, become your best customers. And as they move up, their brand affinity goes up. And it's these guys at the top that become, quote, fans of your brand. And once they're fans of your brand, then they're more likely to buy other products and services with your brand on it. And that holds true whether it's the Batman brand, whether it's the Spider-Man brand, whether it's Coca-Cola, or in your industry, whether it is Kate Spade or Ralph Lauren or Starbucks and so forth. So that's just a quick background philosophy. The other thing I wanted to point out is the way we define licensing. It's almost on a continuum. A lot of people in the industry, in the licensing agents and brokers and consultants, we're not doing wholesale sales on the left, and we're not really doing M&A. But all these other words get commingled. Licensing agreement, partnership marketing, co-brand venture, strategic alliance, whatever it is, I call an alliance, which I define as two companies getting together. They're here to share the control. They're here to share the risks, and of course, we're all in it to share the rewards. So here's a quick interactive piece. We'll see if we can pull this off, Debbie. Can anybody name one of the top licensors? License Magazine, which Jessica's company publishes, puts out a list every year of the top licensors. Here, they come out with the top 150. I have on this slide the top 20. Anybody can name one, maybe type one, and Debbie, just read it off. Let's see. I think it's important that we all just kind of touch base on who are the big players in this licensing industry. So Debbie, anybody submit one? And if not, Debbie, then you have to make a guess. Anybody? And I see some activity on the chat. And somebody said Disney, and absolutely, Disney is the #1 licensor based on how much royalty revenue they receive every year. And they're bigger now than they've ever been, ever since, and as you know, they acquired Star Wars a few years ago and Marvel a couple years before that. And there's a lot of other entertainment companies on this top 20 list. Nickelodeon and Sanrio, which owns Hello Kitty, and Warner Brothers, and so forth. Others on this list, sports. Major League Baseball comes in as the top in the royalty arena. And then collegiate licensing, NFL, NBA. Also, the fashion brands. You have #2, Philip Van Heusen, which owns Tommy Hilfiger as well as Calvin Klein. Other fashion brands fill out the top 20, and then there's some corporate brands like Better Home and Garden and Chevrolet and Westinghouse and so forth. So there's a quick look at who's who as far as the top licensors. All right. So what I'm going to do now, and the point of my chatting with you, is really to share some case studies. And I've broken them down into basically a number of different strategies that we've seen different companies take in order to boost their sales. So these are all from the licensee's perspective. So I'm going to run through these, and imagine you are a manufacturer, and I know a lot of you are looking at the list of who's on the line, and you want to grow your business. And you're thinking, okay, how can I use licensing to grow my business? Well, a lot of companies at that show, at that Housewares show in your industry, are using these specific strategies to grow their industry, to grow their business using licensing. And then after this, I'm going to share one case study of work that we've done on behalf of our client, Royal Dalton, which was a past client of ours. So #1 is Disney, meaning a lot of companies say, all I need to do is get a Disney license. Disney is #1. We just saw that. They have tremendous brands, nothing bigger than Star Wars for this year, of course. And maybe the strategy for your company is get a Disney license. A lot of companies in your industry have done that. Walking the halls at the Housewares show, you clearly can see that. In fact, one company is Select. I was amazed at the number of houseware products they have with Disney. So knowing what is going on in the industry and knowing how long some of these companies have had Disney products, this has been a very successful licensing strategy for a lot of companies, just to take a Disney license. So that's #1. #2, maybe your strategy is, let's take them all. We don't know how to choose a good one or a bad one, so you know what we're going to do? We're going to take them all. And looking at the marketplace and seeing what's going on in your industry, there's a couple of companies that have done that. One of them is Keurig. Now, Keurig has got almost every important brand under the sun in their format, and they are the licensee. They are the licensee of Folgers, believe it or not. They are which is owned by Smuckers and its own company, a coffee company. They're the licensee of Swiss Miss, of Lipton, of Starbucks. Imagine that. The Keurig is actually the licensee of Starbucks. And if you were to look at a bed and bath, you could see that wall of tons of different Keurig options. And there's a lot of other companies in the industry using that strategy too. Another one is Helen of Troy. And Helen of Troy is making blow dryers and different hair accessories, but they have taken licenses from almost everybody, from Revlon, from P&G, from Unilever's Bedhead division, and so forth. One other example is DecoPack. DecoPack is that company that makes those cake toppers. And I saw one of their executives recently. He told me they have over 60 different licenses. And this is what some of their products look like. So for them, it all depends on different risk factors, different things going on in the company and the category itself. For them, this is a successful strategy. And maybe this is a strategy that might be right for your company. #3. #3 is, let's go with a portfolio approach. Here's a good case study from Westland Giftware. They make salt and pepper shakers, and they went after the Happy Days license. Joni and Chachi, they also went after the Cheers license, front and center. And their approach was, hey, we're working with CBS. They own Cheers. Let's stick with that company. Let's stick with CBS and do as much as we can just with CBS. And we call that the portfolio approach. And in this case, the Westland Giftware is doing tons of different classic TV shows that are all owned by CBS. And as you see in this picture, there's not only Cheers, but Spanky and a bunch of others. Other companies that use that strategy, I would say Butler is using that strategy. If you see product line that they have, they are also really doing a lot just with P&G. So they're doing the P&G products, the brand Mr. Clean by P&G, Dawn by P&G, Gain by P&G. Again, working with P&G and doing their entire portfolio. Next strategy is I'm going to show you an example of some work we did on behalf of our client, the Weather Channel. This is a past client, but what we did with them is we were extending their brand to different products. Came across a company called Lacrosse Technology, and they have a great product. They have a weather station and a clock radio that tells you the time as well as the outdoor temperature. And this product was a really good product. It was selling at Brookstone and at a lot of catalogs and through private label, but they could not get into the key retailers. They could not break into Best Buy and Walmart and Home Depot and Lowe's. So their strategy was they needed a brand that could help get them into the key big box retailers. And for them, it turned out that the Weather Channel was the right brand, because the beauty of it all is they licensed in the Weather Channel brand, created this product, which is simply a good product with a great name, and this product had instant sell-in at Home Depot, at Lowe's, at Walmart, at Best Buy, instant sell-through, and has been a great success over the past number of years. This brings me to a quick little list I'm going to share with you, which is our company's 3 principles on licensing. Number 1, licensing can make a good product great. And the example I just shared with you about Lacrosse Technology is a perfect example. They had a good product, but adding the right brand made it a great product. Now the corollary here is that you cannot take a bad product and make it good. You can only make a good product great. Number 2, licensing does give you that sustainable competitive advantage. Using the last example, the company Lacrosse Technology, they had a number of competitors that had somewhat similar products, but they were the only ones that had the exclusive right to the Weather Channel brand. And because of that, they had a nice advantage over all of their competition. That holds true in many, many categories. And finally, number 3, that all licensing is risky. And what we're here to do as consultants, as agents, is really to help guide you and to make sure you're making the right decision, that you're taking the right risk. And because there's always that option of doing nothing, which many companies do. But we think there's a lot of great opportunities by licensing, entering the licensing industry and getting involved in licensing to grow your business. But it's all about managing the risk and taking very calculated, manageable risks. So those are our 3 principles of licensing. All right, going back to our chart, number 5. Actually, number 4, we're still on the retailer. So about retailer targeted, this is a good time to talk about Martha Stewart and the direct-to-retail arena. Martha Stewart almost invented this by doing deals years ago. I'm talking about 15 years ago or more with Kmart, where she did a direct-to-retail, where instead of a manufacturer licensing her brand, a retailer licensed her brand. And it's become tremendous. In fact, here's a quick advertisement from a recent Macy's ad, where she has over 3,000 products.
Russia is in the air. Russia's in the air. I know I'm a little biased, but this is great. Hi, how's the new fragrance going? You want to try it? Wow, that's terrific. It took me forever to design this bottle. Oh, I was in research for months before I got everything just perfect. Okay, I worked on 2 fragrances. Now, how many things did you make? 2,000 or so? Honestly, girl, when do you sleep?
The new Martha Stewart collection, only at Macy's.
Okay, so just a quick ad, a tremendous project there. And Martha not only has a deal with Macy's today, she has one at Home Depot, with Michael's stores, and also with PetSmart for pet products. Other examples of that direct-to-retail you may have seen if you walked into a Kohl's. They have a direct deal with the Food Network for all the pots and pans and cutlery, and really well-executed program there. two more case studies. One is I'm going to share with you the work that we did on behalf of our client FTD Flowers. So on behalf of FTD Flowers, their goal was to reach a new demographic. Their goal was to say, you know what, we want to get more of those 20-year-olds to buy our flowers, more of the 20-year-olds who are getting married and so forth. So for them, we went out and licensed in brands that might attract that younger demographic. It was all about going after the demographic. So the first one that we did for them was Todd Oldham, who had an MTV show of style, a style show on MTV, really was well known and well respected amongst the 20-year-olds, and did a lot of fun different containers and fun floral arrangements in colanders, in martini glasses, and so forth, which worked well. The second one that we licensed in was Vera Wang, and this one became truly a home run marriage between the two companies. Not only did it move the needle, and it's been a great financial success for FTD, and it's reaching their goal of getting a younger demographic to buy this flower. The beautiful part is that just on the announcement, when the two companies announced this, FTD is a public company and so forth, their stock did a nice little jump in the market when they announced this alliance. And it's been over 5 years in the market, and it's been truly a beautiful success, reaching that younger market and so forth. So when you talk about what do the licensees want, there's a lot of times we, as an agency, we work with manufacturers and with brand owners. We do a lot of work with manufacturers that say, okay, how can you help us grow our business? And number one, a lot of times we end up working with fantastic manufacturers that don't have the credibility in the marketplace. They might have a great product, but the people don't know it. So if people were to say, what is the number one thing that licensing provides me as a manufacturer? Number one thing is trust. Is really that credibility in the marketplace, trust with the buyers, trust with the consumers. Another couple examples of that, one is a deal between Kaz Marketing. Now, Kaz was a no-name company that was making humidifiers. However, they licensed in P&G's Vicks brand, and it's become a tremendous success. One of the best case studies I've seen in the type 2 medical devices, where now they're captured leading market share. Two other examples. One is what Hamilton Beach has done recently by licensing in Jamba Juice, which again, Jamba Juice with over 500 stores, it's great visibility and awareness, and creating the Hamilton Beach juicer has been a great success. It really added that credibility to the Hamilton Beach product as far as creating a great product. Another one is what Quickie, a division of Jordan, has done recently by licensing in Lysol. So again, Quickie is a good product, the buyers know it, but adding the Lysol brand, instant awareness, instant success. So those are a couple of case studies. So to finish, I'm now going to walk you through some work that we did on behalf of Royal Doulton. And Royal Doulton, the work includes both licensing in, where they licensed in brands to create fine china for Gordon Ramsay and Monique Lhuillier. But on the flip side, also a lot of fun was licensing out. And the best product, most successful, was flatware and silverware. Why? Because it's the closest to the core product of fine china. The same buyer, a lot of times it's the same bride who's registering for these products. So this was a lot of fun to do. Another example is we licensed out tea and aromatherapy, licensed out bedding as well, licensed out lighting, and some of these, including this company, Cascade, was a global deal. They were selling this in about 30 different countries. And finally, one fun one, because Royal Doulton was best known for having the highest quality porcelain, we licensed out a bathtub. So that is our fun little Royal Doulton case study to share with you. One other theory slide I'm going to share with you. A lot of companies come to us and they say, you know what, we have this brand, is it licensable? Can you tell me, can I generate revenue? And we believe a lot of brands are licensable. But the way that we go about to analyze this is we look at it on two continuums. Is there a lot of love? Is there a lot of respect? And this is based on some work that we've seen and published by Saatchi and Saatchi on their love marks. And basically, we've tweaked it a bit for the licensing market, but we really believe it's based on how much respect your brand has, how much love your brand has. And there are those commodities, eggs and milk, don't have a lot of respect, not a lot of love. It's necessary, and in our opinion, not a lot of licensing opportunity. There's a lot of brands out there that have a lot of respect, but not a lot of love. We call these kind of your corporate, not just corporate brands, but sometimes your retail store brands and so forth. And for those, there might be some licensing opportunities. And then there's another quadrant where there's a lot of love, but it's short-lived. And then over the long run, there's not a lot of respect. And for those, we put down the silly bands and Psy from the music fame, and most recently Duck Dynasty, which had an incredible run, but now seems to have petered out and become a fad. But really, where you want to be, if your brand is in this upper right-hand quadrant, that's where we see a lot of opportunity for licensing, where there's a lot of love, there's a lot of respect, a lot of fans, whether it's for the brand Oreo or the New York Yankees, or the Mets, or Batman, Coke, and Star Trek, and so forth, or in these days, Star Wars. That's really where you want to be. So now I'm going to finish and leave you with, I believe, are the best practices for licensing success, and then we'll take some questions. Number one, plan. We believe in our practice that you should always have a plan, and we create these strategic licensing plans for a lot of our clients, the best way to start. Number two is to partner. It's all about finding the best partner, finding the right partner for your company, whether that's a big partner, a small partner, an innovative partner, and so forth. It's really about finding that right partner. Number three, come up with how you're going to measure success. Come up with the right metrics and then track it. And if that means profit, yes, absolutely, profit's the name of the game. So it's all about how you're going to measure and track your success in the licensing. And finally, a little shout out for us professionals in the service industry that you might want to explore using a professional to help you get that success. And one more slide on what us professionals can do. We really are out there to help add value, add expertise and access, just make the whole process more efficient, to minimize your risk and to accelerate your success. So that is our presentation. I'm going to leave you with one last thing. Here's a list of our services, but in tribute to the biggest movie of 2015 for sure, and maybe the biggest movie of all time, I'll leave you with this 30-second clip, little spoof on licensing. And get your questions ready.
Merchandising. Merchandising? What's that? Merchandising. Come, I'll show you. Merchandising, where the real money from the movie is made. Baseball's the T-shirt. Baseball's the coloring book. Baseball's the lunchbox. Baseball's the breakfast cereal. Baseball's the flamethrower. The kids love this one.
All right, so there you have it. Thank you for your time, and look forward to your questions.
Sue?
Yes.
Okay, we have quite a few questions here for you. The first question is, do agents work only with brands, licensors, or do agents also work with manufacturers, look for brands?
So the work that we do, we view our company as a consulting company with the sole purpose to help companies grow using licensing as the strategy. And that incorporates two parts. One, we work with brand owners to help them identify and secure new partners and license out their brand. And two, we help companies identify and secure brands to license in for manufacturers who are looking for brands to license in. So we do both services, licensing in and licensing out, and some people call licensing out being an agent. Some people call licensing in being consultant. but that's hope that answers your question.
Okay. The next one is, if you're a licensee calling on a brand that either A, currently doesn't license out, or B, used to license out and work with an agent but no longer works for an agent, who would you normally ask for? And if you're calling 5 to 10 times with no callback, should you just keep up or keep trying? Or give up or keep trying, I'm sorry.
So yeah, I'm not sure if I understand entirely, but basically, if you're calling 10 times to try to, to try to explore a brand, after 10 times you should understand it's probably your technique is not working. I mean, calling 10 times is not unheard of, but there's a lot of ways to get through, and the phone, unfortunately, these days compared to 10 years ago, is not as effective as it used to be. Another plug for consultants and agents is that as an agent and a consultant, we have a lot of access because we've been in the industry so long, we know a lot of the players, we're able to get a quicker response. It's a little hard to follow exactly what your person was asking, but if they want to email me separately, I'm happy to give them more detail or answer any detailed question. And that goes with everybody there. You can see our contact info on this page. You can also follow us. I think we're one of the largest Twitter followings in the industry. So feel free to come and follow us and all that. So Debbie or Jenny, keep going.
Okay, here's another one. Do you need a Disney license to be successful?
That is a good question, and depends on the company. It all depends is the key answer. For that company I shared with you, Select, for them, I guess the answer is yes. They do need a Disney license. They have created a nice niche for themselves. And there are a lot of companies that do need a Disney license to be successful. But in the broad strokes, if you had to ask, can you survive without, can you be very successful without a Disney license? The answer is absolutely yes.
Can I add to that, Stu? I mean,
yeah,
it's interesting. Licensing Expo's been growing every year, and there are 5,000 brands available for license at Licensing Expo. So there is a huge variety of licenses, and we haven't really touched on this, but the art licensing community is really active also. I mean, we have 80 artists at our show who are licensing out their artwork. Now, they don't really. It doesn't really fit the traditional model, really, that we've talked about today, in that the respect and the love probably isn't there, but it's a beautiful design. It's a beautiful piece of art. Therefore, a retailer or a licensee, sees it, connects with it, and can see immediately that will transfer onto great product, and that will give them an advantage into selling into retail. So that's also, something we haven't really talked about, but there are, I would say, no, you don't necessarily have to have a Disney license to be successful. There are a lot of other licenses out there also.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Jessica, some of the art brands are well known.
Some are, right.
Yeah, whether Keith Haring or Monet and Andy Warhol seem to generate significant revenue. And Debbie Taylor Kerman has really picked up a lot of awareness over the years. But you're right, there's a whole segment that of companies that might be looking just for beautiful art for their popcorn tins or for their dinnerware or for their melamine dinnerware and so forth, and those are also all on display at that licensing show.
Right, and when I was walking around the Housewares show, I saw a lot of Licensing Expo exhibitors' art on display, either in tableware or glassware. I saw a fair amount, so that was an interesting observation. Yeah,
I know. I was looking at the list of attendees, and I saw somebody had signed up for the seminar from Tervis, which has really had a very aggressive licensing strategy for their company. I was in one of their retail stores recently, amazed at how many licenses they have and how good they all looked.
Right.
Okay, well, moving to the next question. How many licenses is the right number?
So that is a good question. Of course, it depends on your company. And for some companies, just a handful. For other companies, as we saw in that case study, whether it's, well, a company like Tervis, I would say they must have over 50 licenses. They probably have over 100 different brands that they are licensing. So if you look at their homepage, they have Kansas City World Series Cup, just a new design for the World Series, as well as all the other 30 baseball teams. So it really depends on the product categories. And the way that we go about answering that question is we go through a process where we really analyze what the consumers are doing. We look at what's going on in the retail space, where they're selling, how they're selling, how much activity is online selling, and come up with the right answer for that particular company.
Okay, great. The next one, if a manufacturer is hesitant about taking on the risk of selling into retailers or doesn't have the resources, are there still licensing options for them?
So if I understand right, it's a manufacturer that may be making great product, but they don't have perhaps a sales force. They don't have a vendor number today at Walmart or at Home Depot or at Bed & Bath, which is not easy to get. So for them to take on a license would be a challenge because they need a place to sell it. So we have seen companies like this become very successful. Next week or in 2 weeks, we're going to the Private Label show, which is a show that features a lot of these companies that are simply in the business of manufacturing. And we see more and more of these trying to put their foot in the water and a toe in the water to test what it would be like to have their own license. We know there's a company called Interbake that for years has been one of the leading private label makers of cookies, and currently they took on a license 2 years ago with the Mrs. Fields company, and they are now making a retail Mrs. Fields cookie. Now what they did, they ended up hiring a senior executive at a General Mills to take the lead and to basically lead their sales force and their efforts to change their company from a private label manufacturer to a consumer packaged good company where they're selling to retailers. So the answer is yes, you can make that change, but it does take some careful planning and some investment.
All right, the next question. Do you work with inventors who are bringing a product to market, or are you looking to license their product to manufacturers?
So when you say inventor, it all depends. Like a lot of what we see at this licensing show and in our industry, I would say 90% of it is trademarks. We're all talking about trademark licensing. When we talk about when we talk about inventions, a lot of times that person might be talking about patents, something they invented. Maybe they came up with the idea of a laughing box inside a doll for Tickle Me Elmo, which is a patent. And there is a lot of licensing around patents. Absolutely, it's a tremendous industry. But I would say the majority of what goes on at the licensing show and in the License magazine is all about trademarks. So as our company also follows that pattern, about 80-90% of our work is in trademarks as opposed to patents. But the methodology is the same. So if they have an invention and they want to sell that invention, a lot of the deal structures are the same. It's based on there's a royalty amount, and some guarantees, and things like that. So, and the idea of approaching companies and trying to offer them this patent for them to license, it's the same methodology. It's just a matter of finding the expert in the industry that you're looking to sell into.
Okay, thank you. The next question, in regards to co-branding, is this a tool that can be used to help build your own brand as a manufacturer, or will a licensor not consider it if your brand does not already have major traction?
Yeah, that is a very good question. So again, in the case that you're talking about where your brand might not have any traction and not have any visibility, then a co-brand may not be that interesting. It might to the licensor. However, certain product categories, it most likely will work. And for example, food and also electronics. So food, you see a lot of co-brand products out there. And the reason is that you need that credibility. The consumers want to know that when they are buying a Breyers Unilever, a Breyers Oreo ice cream, they want to know that Breyers, which is the #1 ice cream in America, that they are the ones behind that ice cream, that it is from a high-quality manufacturer and so forth. And the fact that it's licensing the brand Oreo is just an added bonus, and it's a fantastic brand and makes it even better, of course, all those great benefits that you get from licensing the Oreo brand. But having it as a co-branded product works better from the consumer standpoint, and better sell-through and so forth. In electronics, we're seeing the same thing as well. We're seeing that a lot of the consumers want to know that this product is licensed. This headphone is Beats, with Dr. Dre, or Beats Taylor Swift. It's actually the Beats guts, that the Beats inside is really part of it. You're not just buying some no-name Taylor Swift brand of headphone, because everybody knows Taylor Swift has awesome music, but she's not in the electronic business. So those are two examples. So it really depends on the product category. If they want to respond as a follow-up question, tell me what category they're talking about, I can give you some more detail.
Great. How does innovation plan into your licensing program in product innovation, process innovation, retail, accounts, etc.?
So these days, innovation is a big buzzword. Everybody needs innovation, and it really starts from the consumers. Consumers want to walk into a store this Christmas, and they want to see products that are different than what they saw last Christmas. So it's really about it's coming from the consumers, and the store buyers know that too. The buyers at Walmart and Home Depot and Lowe's, they want to see something a little better, a little different than what you sold them last year. So they push that back to the manufacturers. And the manufacturers, of course, must be always on their toes to innovate and make great product and beat out their competition. So innovation these days is key. And as if I was a licensor looking at different manufacturers and trying to decide who should I license to, I would look and I would have innovation to see how innovative a company is would be one of the criteria, because you need a company that is on the forefront. Looking at those fun products by Selective, all those Disney products, a lot of them are very innovative. A lot of innovative designs and techniques, and it's not the old products that they had 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or even 3 years ago. As you know, in the trade show business from the Housewares show, when you walk there every year, there's always new fun stuff to look at. So innovation is key, and it's a key, in our opinion, it's a key criteria when you're selecting a licensee.
Okay, we have a few more here for you and Jessica. Is there a rule of thumb to determine MGs and advances for new licenses?
So the rule of thumb that we like to do, and follow me here, I don't want to get too complex, but typically, if I was a licensor, I would go to the licensee and give them some guidelines, but as far as the minimum guarantee, I would say, tell me what your projections are. And they might come back and say, okay, we think we can do $1 million wholesale in the first year, and we'll do a 1-year deal for this example. $1 million wholesale, the royalty rate is 10%, so that's $100,000 is what the projected royalty payment is. And these are projections from you, from the manufacturer. So the minimum guarantee rule of thumb is I try to hold them to half of their projection. So I would then turn around and say, your minimum guarantee will be $50,000 because it's half of what your projection is. So that's a good rule of thumb to start with when you're making a proposal. We've seen that minimum guarantee on renewals go up to about 70% of what your projections are. But these days, because some of the retailers, like Walmart and and some of the other big boxes are so dominant that it can make or break. It can be 30% of your sales. You need to, as a manufacturer, give yourself some wiggle room, and the licensors, the smart licensors, know that. So again, our rule of thumb advice is to make a proposal with 50% of your projection as your guarantee.
So you're saying, Stu, as a licensee, be realistic with your projections, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, you have a lot of questions here. This is great.
Again, anybody, if we don't get to questions, feel free to email me, email either of us, and I know we'd be happy to respond that way.
And here's the next one. If we have a Housewares item with a patent, is it advantageous to manufacture ourselves and license our products simultaneously?
So you would make the product and also license the patent out so a competitor can make a similar product, I imagine? It doesn't sound like something you want to do, to give your competitor the right to make a competitive product, if I'm understanding right.
I'm wondering if the question is, if you have a patent on a product and you're going to go into manufacturing it yourselves, maybe at what point would you then, license, maybe bring a brand in and license something in order to sell more of that product that you're manufacturing? I don't know if that's the question, but
that's what they asked. What I would encourage is whomever did ask this question to contact Stu or Jessica via email or call them and maybe talk in a little more detail in regards to that. And the last question seems to be to Stu and Jessica. What will look different in 5 years from now, do you both think?
What will look different in 5 years from now? That's a really good question. I mean, we're seeing a lot of change in the licensing world at the moment. I mean, there are various things that are kind of impacting our world in a good way, I have to say. But I think 3D printing is potentially going to change some things, and we're kind of watching that closely, and we're developing a 3D printing pavilion at the show in 2016 because there seems to be so much interest in that. Another thing that we're seeing is the impact of digital content on our market. Our industry, 60% of licensing is born from entertainment and character properties. So it's a huge part of the market, and the way we are at the show through a summit. Stu, you probably have some other things to add to that.
Yeah, no, I think those two are key. Some things will look different. Some things will look the same. I think Disney, which has been the #1 licensor ever since that list was put out, will most likely still be the #1 licensor. Yeah. Star Wars will still be a big movie. But I think you're going to see a lot of change also in retail. I think as Amazon is now the #10 retailer in America, and that is the first time ever they've broken into the top 10. And now they're actually even making money. So I think we're going to see a lot more activity online with online retailers and different types of online retailers and so forth. So I think that will change things up a bit. But as you said before, I think the change in properties, in the past 5 years, we've seen a lot of these digital apps become popular, whether it's Angry Birds or Candy Crush and so forth. But the YouTube stars, absolutely. I know we've seen a bunch at the trade shows where they're Grumpy Cats and Bethany Moda and so forth. And I think that will definitely increase as well. But I think also licensing as a tool will continue to grow, and it has grown over the past couple of years. We're seeing that hit more and more industries, and bottom line, it's been a successful tool for manufacturers, for marketers to use, and we're bullish on the future of licensing as a growth tool for your company. So there you have it.
That's a good way to end.
Yeah.
That is a great way. And on behalf of IHA, I'd like to thank Jessica and Stu for a very informative and great webinar. And for all of you who did attend today, would like to pass this information on, it is at www.housewares.org in the Knowledge Center. And you can go back and listen to the webinar again and also share it with any of your colleagues and friends. And once again, Jessica and Stu, thank you very much for your time. And I'd like to thank everyone for attending our webinar Wednesdays and Lunch and Learn, and have a great day.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you.